Welcome back, folks. Today we're going to look at everything we have learned in the gameplay reveal of the Blood of Dawnwalker, because yesterday we had a full 1-hour event where they went into details about many aspects of the game, from combat, quests, time passage, abilities, magic, and much more. So let's begin. First off, let's talk about general gameplay, one of the main aspects being the day and night cycle, where during the day Cohen is a human, so your play style will focus around using your swords, as well as abilities which are in relations to swordplay, like throwing accurate dust, which stuns the enemy for a short period, or burning blood hex that also take a bit of our health, because that's how magic will work in this universe. You do a powerful ability, but it takes something from you either as health or another debuff. Combat itself will be directional, meaning like in For Honor or similar titles, choosing the angle of the strike as well as defending from that or parry from those directions will be needed, because, well, if you, for example, move to the left and your enemy is attacking from the right, you're gonna be taking damage. I do like the idea that they have for combat here, although one thing I would change would definitely be camera placement, as throughout the fight it was jumping quite a bit, even giving moments during the fight where it can be problematic. And one of the things when it comes to this sort of camera is that usually it's gonna be causing issues. I mean, in general, even outside of the combat gameplay, I would get the camera out a bit because it feels like it's too close. I mean, it reminded me a bit of the Witcher 1 camera, but even there it sort of like zooms out when you move. Now, this is also something people in the comments have been saying a lot, so maybe they address this, being that, well, this is the pre-beta after all, and I do like that they show the actual gameplay here without any pre-rendering or something similar to it, so they're really giving you some raw examples of what the game is right now. But as far as the animations go, there was enough weight for me, like for example on the attacks, and it seems you can play very tactically with it to go through the enemies faster, so no complaints on that part. While during the night we utilize our vampiric abilities like Shadow Step to move around the area more, and, well, combat will reflect that as we fight with our claws or weapons as we, choose, making it a lot more brutal and aggressive than playing during the day. I do like that claws actually leave a mark on enemies and that we have sort of like sliced them up so it's visible in the gameplay, but again, I feel like the camera angle could really use some work to make it, well, blend a lot more, and since they have this beautiful nature and level design, I think extending that FOV or just making the camera a bit longer would give it a lot more justice and make, the visibility in general just better. Now, going back a bit, at the start we are in front of Svartrau, which is the main and biggest city in Valle Sangora, meaning that most of the important segments of the game will be here, but the map is bigger than this. I would say around maybe Blood and Wine size, as much as I noticed, which, means other locations as well, different biomes and so on, points of interest, crypts and caves to uncover. Because being that this is an open world RPG, we will be able to do usual stuff like collect items such as weapons, other crafting resources and food, since, well, during the day we don't have access to our vampirism, meaning that we have to heal the old-fashioned way using, just food and probably potions. As far as the armor goes, we will be able to change coat, gauntlets, pants, boots, equip 2 rings and an amulet. Now, of course, also with a weapon at the end. Now, we also have the usual, rarity ratings for items, so like we got used to from other, RPG games. So technically, we will be able or should be able to find unique pieces of gear as we explore or do quests. When it comes to abilities or, well, perks, we have human, shared and Vrakiri perks with active ability stabs as well. We can upgrade those abilities to give us better bonuses, like for example Arcane Binding here allows hexes to last longer. Now, as we assign those points, we later get access to even better ones, so pretty straightforward. Crafting tab is going to be here as well. Now, it should be interesting, like, what can we craft from inventory? Is it either going to be some consumables and utilities, or maybe we can craft something more like swords and armor, but there is most likely going to be a trader or a blacksmith for that. To go back to the level and environmental design, I do like the vibes here, being set in the Carpathian Mountains, they can really play around with all sorts of concepts from mythology, then utilizing the architectural style to elevate the uneasiness in the air and so on, which is I think something they're aiming for here. And they also mentioned that entering Svartrau now is okay because we are in mid-game, but depending on our choices and the way we fight, for example, different enemies, or if we cause a lot of chaos, new edicts can come into place from branches, making it so that, for example, there could be more checks on the entry or more guards roaming around, which is their way of making the world react to your decisions and actions. And I don't know if it's just me, but there is something really familiar here, like you can feel some of the elements from The Witcher here when it comes to the vibes, the way stuff feels, the way people walk around, which is a huge plus for me personally if there is that DNA in it, and there will be a lot more events or scenarios, playing throughout the city, including some that can be useful as overhearing something people talk about can lead us to a new quest or even a treasure. And I love when RPGs do that, having relevant discussions happen and then having that which they said reflect in the game itself. If someone says, hey, I saw some goblins up on the hill, they were dragging something into the cave, and we go there and see it, now that's phenomenal, and every RPG which has that has a huge plus from me. Now on the UI side, we see, besides the quests, we see a timer. It says 22 days left to rescue your family. So if you're not aware, Dawnwalker will have a feature where when you do stuff quest-wise, keep in mind time passes, and you have to find a way to get your family before the time runs out. Now keep in mind that each playthrough will be different because, well, you have many ways of approaching a certain quest or not approaching it at all and still continue with your main story or, well, with your main mission. The aspect of it meaning that the more you do, easier final fights will be because, well, there is a chance you're gonna be getting more allies to your side. Plus you will get to level up and get, more equipment and so on, and as I said, get more people involved. Although if you are sure of yourself and you want a challenge technically, then you can storm the castle really early in the game, but I mean, if you're going to be low level, there is nothing you can do unless you play flawlessly, and I believe that even then they are going to most likely do a lot of challenges which are going to, well, destroy you. Like for example that fight with Zante at the end was where we came in completely unprepared, and even though we did some initial damage to her, keep in mind that, she pretty much replenished all of that health and she got us in like one step. Because developers wanted to structure the game in this way so that it really gives you that narrative sandbox feel, as they call it, where you make those decisions and not just go through the quests where it's all going to be the same. You might have some small decisions and that's it. They don't want to do that. They want you to really have the freedom in this game and still being able to finish the title or fail. I mean, it's gonna be very interesting to see what happens if we do not rescue our family within those 22 days. So to explain it one more time, time passage happens when we initiate quest or we continue with a certain story, because technically, as they said, there is no main or side quests. I mean, you have one overarching story, but technically every single mission you do is going to benefit you in some way on your main path. Which means again that time won't pass if we are just walking around or standing in one place or maybe attacking some bandits and collecting some loot. You don't have to worry about that, but later on, for example, we see in the gameplay when Cohen talks to the priest, we can see that if we go and confess, we spend, I guess, one of those bars for the day, so that's where that mission continues, which technically allows you to do more or just go out and explore Valle Sangora without worrying that those 22 days will pass in 3 hours IRL and that's it. Cutscenes are very solid, lip sync might be a bit rough here and there, but nothing that stood out too much for me to like kinda give me any issues. Overall, it feels like very much a classic RPG discussion and classic decisions we're gonna be making, so that's very cool. And as I said, dialogue-wise, everything will matter, so we have to be quick to, decide the best course of action and whom we trust or not, because we never know what's going to come out of it. Like, we didn't tell the priest anything, we didn't tell him, our name, but he still knew who we were at the end, signaling he might not be a bad guy after all, but you never know. Now we move into the night part of the gameplay, so quests can be done either way, during the day or during the night, but the difference is going to be in how we approach that quest. So yes, during the night, for example, doors of the cathedral are locked, but we can use our vampiric abilities to scale the walls and roofs. Here we also get proper vampire movement, so we can scale pretty much anything, walk on walls and move around unseen, and so far, at least animation wise, when Cohen is walking around, it seems to be okay. Like, there is that freedom we can have, and to be honest, it's not one of those games where, your movement is going to be restricted in some ways, but rather, well, it's going to be very much open, and animation, locomotion is going to follow up with that. And on top of that, we must drink blood to regain our HP. When we drink blood, we can either, knock someone out or completely kill them. And that means for everyone, as Dev said, all of the NPCs, including important ones, can have something bad happen to them. Like, if we're not drinking blood as Cohen, it probably depletes to 0 and then we lose control and we start draining the closest person to us, which could be a very important NPC, so we have to be very careful about that. Of course, if you don't want to attack humans, maybe that's going to be your play style, you can also get blood from animals and other places, as they said. All I know is that in a world with vampires, you wouldn't see me drunk outside at night. No way. But keep in mind that this is also like the first part of the story, so this is where Cohen gets the powers, this is where we sort of like learn how to use them. So I'm thinking if Cohen is going to become so powerful by the end of the game where, fighting Brances should be a lot easier, I do wonder what sort of enemies we're gonna fight with Cohen later on in the sequels, if this is going to be just that beginning and, Cohen is learning everything he can about being a Dawnwalker. So far, NPCs at least seem to, see what Cohen can do, so they can see him do his vampiric stuff and they sort of run away in fear, which is something I expect from them, but at the same time it's gonna be interesting to see this dynamic between guards and us doing those abilities and how we're seen, how much stealth we can do and so on. Now, in the cathedral itself, we see Zante, which is one of the main vampire enemies in the game. We can even fight her early on, but again, that fight will be extremely challenging and not something I think, developers intended for the regular playthrough, but rather as an optional, very difficult challenge. But I'm glad it's possible to do it. I mean, it really gives you that freedom. And because, these enemies are gonna be in different places during the day, during the night, it makes things dynamic. It feels like all of those, like, NPCs are alive and things are moving even if we are not there. And on top of that, we can access some hidden loot in all of those places, hidden quests, so exploration will be very much rewarded. You have to go across the roofs, you have to do these things because you never know if you're going to come around a quest which is going to give you a strong amulet or a strong ring or maybe something else which is going to help you out. And besides the gameplay, we got more developer insights into the vibes and sort of what they want from the title, making time resources you can spend technically, then making locations creepy and eerie, so there is that, full immersion, so that's fine. I mean, look, I do like what I've seen. Obviously, this is still in pre-beta, so many things can change, and I think this is very ambitious, especially from that narrative standpoint, because when you have these sort of like sandbox missions, or they want to call it that way, you have to take into account each action that players are going to do, and players are gonna be doing some crazy stuff. You never know at what stage or at what point someone is going to approach a certain quest, otherwise it falls apart. So I'm really happy though, because the writing team is very strong, so I think that segment of the game, at least when it comes to like questing and like sandbox element of it, how things react to one another, is going to really shine. The rest can be optimized and fixed up, and I'm sure like as the time passes and we get closer to the release, we're gonna be seeing updated gameplay and maybe, you know, taking into account all of the feedback they have gotten from this event to shape into the final game, because I do firmly believe that they can really turn this into a fantastic, interesting RPG title. Lore-wise as well, there is a lot here that we have to talk about, but I will leave that for another video which is coming soon. But you let me know down below in the comments, what do you think about all of this, and did you like it, did you dislike it? Tell me all about it. But if you enjoyed this video, consider liking, subscribing and joining our community on Twitter and Discord for more. Huge thanks to my Patreon supporters, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye bye.